Okay, as middle-aged ladies, we know that we can sometimes be a little bit eclipsed out in the world, in meetings, showing up, saying what we need to say when we need to say it. Well, today we have the solution to no longer be eclipsed. We're going to learn how to use our voices effectively, thanks to Jessica Neighbor, International Voice Coach.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you for that beautiful intro. Yes, ladies, let's get into this. Let's figure out how to use our vocal instrument, get behind ourselves with confidence, let go of that old baggage, and speak our minds. Because you know what? We have a lot to share, don't we?
Yes, we do.
By this age, we sort of had a voice as little girls, then got totally influenced and sometimes sidetracked along the way. And now I feel like as middle-aged women, we are stepping back into our power and we have an opportunity to rediscover our real voice and use it in the way that we need to and that we know we can.
Oh, you just said something that felt kind of like a gut punch and a piece of promise that we are rediscovering what is the voice now.
Right.
That's the thing I keep realizing, right? As I'm moving into this stage of my life, I'm becoming more of myself. I see you becoming more of yourself.
Yes.
And it's this fun, and I still like you. You seem to still like me.
I like you more because
Oh,
I know you more.
yes, because we're not faking it.
No.
We're not the fake smiles. We're not pretending we're in a cult. We're not actually in cults that I know of. But it's so true. So who are you at this stage of life? What do you want to say? How do you want to say it? How are you afraid you're being perceived? What's already stopping you before you even get out there? That is the promise of today's episode. And so I'm super excited.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Oh my gosh. And I love that you're working the workbook.
I am,
And
yes.
there's really two parts of it, right? The first part is all about rediscovering our voices through examining what has influenced us, examining our family of origin, our culture at large, and real deal things like sexism, ableism, racism. Those all come into play with how we feel about our voice. What I also think is so incredible is the timing of this. Y'all, we just were watching a bunch of powerful women speak at the Democratic National Convention. Hello, Michelle Obama's speech, mind blowing. So we know what is possible, but we also know that oftentimes a lot of us women have some healing to do from
Right.
our past. So the whole first part of the work book discusses things like what we were told we were as children, what our roles in our family were,
Absolutely.
and then taking into even a greater, step back lens, what did we feel like we could say as women? A question I like to ask a lot of my clients is, well, what do you think a powerful speaker looks like to you? What do you feel like someone who is truly seen and heard? What do they look like and they sound like? What image comes to mind?
Right. A lot of those questions you asked blew my mind because I did have to sit back and think about that. About, well, all right, what do I admire and why? And how far do I think I am from that promised land?
Ding, ding, ding.
Right.
I mean, there's a real reason why 70% of humans fear public speaking. There is something that's inherently scary about it. I think we feel very vulnerable. We feel very like on our own as we're talking and our whole group is looking at us. But I think specifically for women, there's even something more tricky. As you said, not wanting to feel like the bitch, having to walk that fine line between being assertive enough but not aggressive because, oh no, we don't like that.
Exactly.
Settings at work. This also happens at dinner parties where you go home and you're like, oh, when I was sharing that story, why was she giving me that, stink eye? And it really can impact us. That is something that as I've researched more about like women in speaking, our gift of being able to connect and to read the room and to be empathetic can be what can actually really trip us up when we are sharing our voice because we are so tuned in, because we are looking for that connection. So if we like interpret something as a negative or hostile, whether it truly is or we're projecting it, or it could be both, that can really throw us off. So one thing in this book that I really hope can help women is to examine our confidence in a way that helps us push through those feelings of discomfort and to trust that we're going to be okay, even with a little stink eye, so that we don't get stuck there. Right?
But I think what you have done so beautifully with the workbook, because I'm like I said, I'm working it. I actually have my little notes in here and everything like that, because I'm working it on my iPad. Is that what you're doing is actually healing. So, I identify as being a healer, and I think so much of what we don't learn in the culture, especially as women, is to actually heal. How do we fix, you call it a vocal scar,
Yes.
or an art scar?
Yes.
How do we go back? Things that happened to us when we were 3 years old, 7 years old, 14 years old, 42 years old, 52 years old. How do we go back? Because I think too many of us lock it away, shut down. I'm not good at that. I'm not going to do that again. I don't like what people said.
Right.
But it's an opportunity to heal.
Yes, it is.
All those sticky points, all that
Yes.
protection is actually pointing to the place that needs healing.
Yeah.
And then you so gently walk us through it. And I've been talking with you about this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I'm learning so much more about myself in private. It's my own private journey, which is actually it was very reminiscent of working the artist's way.
Yes.
Which I love doing over and over and over again.
Ooh, yeah, that's a fun one.
I haven't done the artist way once. I've probably done it like 12 times.
Yes.
Alone, in groups, in facilitated groups.
Yes.
Even with my siblings one time. We all did it.
Oh my gosh, to prepare for this workbook, I've done so many workbooks lately. I am like workbooked out. But I love it. I love it. And you're right. It's this conversation we're having with ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what we're discovering through the journey to understand our voice is really that conversation with ourselves. What do we tell ourselves when we speak? What is our immediate feedback and our immediate reaction? And when you hear women talk, there's really great discussions in my community, Love Your Voice community through Substack. One dear woman in there shared how her voice scar came when she was a little girl. Her dad said that she talked so much that he thought that she swallowed a radio. This is a woman our age, girlfriend of a certain age, love you. And what that did, that she's carrying that to this day around with her. I similarly was told that I was too much. I was so dramatic and I was so much. That has been something I'm still unpacking to this day.
Yeah.
Right. And so those little voice scars that we get stick with us. And you'll hear a lot of women talk about how they either felt them at home from like a dad or a sibling or some ding dong that just says something. Right?
I love that. Call him a ding dong. Right? Because it probably was not said with malice. I hope that this statement I make to you ruins this part of you for the rest of your stinking life.
It's true.
I don't think any teacher or dad or pastor or rabbi or neighbor or creepy kid in the 3rd grade wanted to total destroy that part of you.
No.
I don't think anyone sets out to that, but yet so many of us are walking around with all of these big and little scars inside of us, and we don't unpack them.
Exactly. So there's an opportunity to kind of really break that down. What is it that we believed? What did we internalize, right? And you can write a love letter to yourself. And then there's also a fun way to break down, what are the parts that we're carrying around that feel funky, right? And so you can break those down into a few pieces. You can break one big one down into imposter syndrome, which we've already been talking about, like what does a good communicator look like? And I think we all have images, and like you said, they often feel very far from us. No, when I really think about, at the end of the day, what makes a great communicator is someone who's authentically them.
Right.
Right? So there's a disconnect between, okay, be authentic and be yourself, but also be polished and perfect. Like those two actually don't really work.
They don't. And when we're alone, we don't know where the line is. So now that I'm working with you and we're doing a podcast and all this stuff, and I listen to myself quite a bit, I have a lot of things, vocal tics, a lot of umming, a lot of, my own funny little quirks.
Yeah.
And I hear them, and sometimes it feels like too much, and sometimes it's like, oh, it's fine. But I think most of us are in our own echo chamber.
That's right.
We don't know where that limit is, and to get that feedback like from the outside a little bit. And so you do that so beautifully, and because you're offering support too on the back end for
Yeah.
free inside of your online community. So
Yeah.
that's something that you can find when you get into the workbook. You'll get access to that. And I highly recommend that you do, because I really trust Jessica, and I imagine at this point you do too, that she has this ability to give that feedback in a way that can be heard. And I think that is your gift,
Yeah.
that you are so gentle and that you understand this stage of life, that we're all becoming
Well,
like Michelle
yeah.
Obama's book.
Yeah.
We're all in this
We're all in it.
evolving cycle.
I mean, I'm in it with you
It's
all.
like being a flower, actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, right. We're all in it. I'm right there with everybody, unpacking these things and figuring out how I feel about my own communication. And at the end of the day, I think we all just want to be liberated,
Yes.
to feel like we are enough. We know what we're saying. And you brought up a great thing about those little speech ticks, because when you go and look at a lot of, speaking coaches, one thing I think we'll learn is that there are these pillars of like how to be a good communicator. And I think a lot of us know them by now, that like we want to take away some ums, and we don't want to have too many kind of like tonal things. But you know what? I'm evolving in my coaching, and I am realizing that so many of those things, those shoulds, absolutely get in the way of feeling like we can be an authentic communicator. It's not doing the thing, it's feeling like we shouldn't do it.
Oh, you mean things that are stereotypically female, of
Yeah.
female ways
Ding,
of
ding,
communicating?
ding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a fascinating new way of looking at like.
Oh,
And you and I know that as California girls, it's often in our water. It's what we grew up with. Like can be in our discussions a lot. For a long time, people just said, don't say that. It just makes you seem, incompetent and like a young person, a young child or whatever. But what they're discovering, so Amanda Montell wrote this great book on language called Word Slut, and it's super fun. She has a whole chapter on like. She breaks down how there's actually 8 different kinds of likes, and some of them are truly effective for communicating, for engaging, even in leadership roles.
interesting.
But there's a gender bias about like when women use it, like I just did, versus when men use it. So a lot of these kind of barrier to entry feelings about being a good communicator, I think if they are taking up too much real estate in your head and you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I said a like, I said an I did an upspeak thing at the end, we're going to be stuck in that. So it's really, with all speaking quirks, speaking habits that we all have been formed with, right? We're not a human unless we've been formed with these things. It's finding the balance for yourself.
Right,
It's finding the balance that feels authentically you.
right. Ooh, and so as you say that and you're looking at me, I think, oh gosh, too, as a Black woman, also, what are the other expectations on how I speak? What is proper? What is acceptable? So there's this other piece too,
Yes.
that I know that I'm very much a feminine style communicator, and I really lean into that a lot, and I'm sure people have all kinds of thoughts and feelings about that, and I'm mostly learning to be okay with that. But then there's this whole other thing around
yeah.
ethnicity, race, what part of the country you're from,
Huge.
accents.
Yes.
There's other things too that
Yes.
give us away, or that we want to hide or pretend. So I wonder what your thoughts are about
Well,
about
yeah.
that.
In the workbook, we talk about that. We talk about the culture that you were raised in, the dialect, what you loved about it, what you felt like you were judged about from it. You'll hear girls in school feel confident up until 5th grade, and then their confidence plummets.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
And very often that is connected, well, to puberty, obviously, but also to what maybe someone said, especially someone who is perceived as different or marginalized, as you're saying, a woman of color, someone who has an immigrant family, someone who has an accent or a strong dialect. You'll hear that there is accent bias out there. that there's dialect bias.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely perceived with the color of your skin. How aggressive can you be? How assertive can you be? How passive should you be? We know that this is all baked in to our culture. So I like that the workbook is analyzing it in a way for you to make those discoveries about what your experience was like growing up, and hopefully doing it in a very non-judgmental way, but just saying, let's look at this. Let's put this out here to see how these experiences and these biases impacted you then, and how they might still be impacting you today with how you speak and how you feel about yourself when you ask for that job promotion, when you draw that boundary with your family that, no, I'm not coming to holiday dinner and this is why. Whatever it is that you need to do, understanding what might be holding you back, and then hopefully giving you enough tools to like really help you to just say the things. So the workbook is really fun. I also made it really accessible. It's really affordable. It's on Amazon and on my website. So we'll put those links below. Also, you can join the community, Love Your Voice, for free, for this same idea that, like, let's take this sort of public speaking up on a podium, intimidating thing, and bring it down to the realness that will help us in our day-to-day life, right? Yeah. So that whenever we're talking and communicating, hopefully we feel good and we feel behind ourselves, and we can let go of some of those voice scars and those feelings from the past and really get behind ourselves. So
I love that. I love you. I love your new book, baby.
Oh, so much love in the air.
So much love in the air. Girlfriends, thank you for being here with us. Like, subscribe, comment, join us over on Substack. We are there to hang out with you and be with you and love you on your own journey. So we would love to hear more from you over there.
Oh, well, thank you. This was a delight. And until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.